Welcome to the devotional series Pondering the Parables and a Psalm a Day Keeps Satan Away, a special podcast edition entitled Following the Footsteps of the Apostle Paul, a Faith Tour of Greece and Ephesus 2026. And I'm Pastor D. Wap. As many of you already know, the Go Forth Ministries is more than just a ministry that creates devotional and Bible study material. We also offer faith tours, pilgrimage tours, if you will, to the places that are mentioned in the Bible and affect our faith in Christ. Israel, of course, is the most prominent one, and we've taken numerous groups to Israel over the last 10 or 12 years. We're not in a position right now to offer a tour there. It's still just a little bit early from all of the events that have happened in the last year and a half there. Egypt has its own special difficulties in creating a tour that's doable, so we're putting that off at least for now, which brings us to Greece, Turkey. We did a faith pilgrimage tour in the spring of 2025 this year, April and May timeframe. We took 31 people there and did this tour, essentially the same tour that we're offering for 2026. It was quite successful. So we're decided that for our next tour, we'd go back to Greece and Turkey. We've actually added one day to the itinerary to kind of make the journey a little bit less frenetic. And so you can see the dates there on the screen, hopefully April 29th through May 9th. And I'm going to see if I can switch over here and get the itinerary up so we can look at it a little bit more in detail. We will leave from the United States on April 29th of 2026. We'll be flying out of the Charlotte airport. You're certainly welcome to join us on our flights, but we always have everybody organize the flights themselves, or you can have Noel do that. This last trip, we had people coming from all over the country, so our meeting point actually was in the Thessaloniki airport. So Thessaloniki is in the northern part of Greece. That name should sound a little bit familiar to you. We would say Thessalonica in English. It's the place and the city where Paul preached the gospel to Thessalonians, and hence he writes two books to them, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. So we'll start our journey to the northern part of Greece, and we will be following Paul's footsteps during his second missionary journey. It's actually the second half of his second missionary journey. It's the first time that he sets foot in Europe, and he preaches straight down the east coast of Greece as he hits one town after the next, usually getting tossed out of town. So we'll hit Philippi the first day. We'll hit Thessaloniki. We'll hit Berea. We'll depart then from the northern part and take a bus coach down to Athens, again following his footsteps. We'll tour Athens, the Acropolis of Athens. And in each one of these stops, by the way, we do have a professional Greek tour guide that will be with us, and we'll offer some cultural information, as well as the teaching that I will be doing at each site. And the meta-narrative is that Paul had a foot in two worlds. He had a foot in the Jewish religious world. He was a Pharisee of Pharisees, a Hebrew of Hebrews, but he also was a Roman citizen and part of the Greek culture of a city called Tarsus, where he grew up, which was a center of Stoicism, that Greek philosophy that maybe you've heard of, Stoics. And so he had a foot in the Greek world, the Roman world, and also in the Jewish world. And he was the perfect evangelist to translate this Jewish religion that had found its fulfillment in Christ's coming and communicate that to the Greek world. And so we'll be exploring theologically that whole concept of we, like Paul, having a foot in the secular world, but also in the Christian world. And how do we meld those two very different cultures, those two very different worldviews together, so that we can be the best witnesses that we can be to Christ and his salvation that he offers to all of humanity. So continuing on with our tour itinerary here, once we get to Athens and we do a tour of the Acropolis and we have our studies there, we will board a cruise ship for a 4-day cruise throughout the Adriatic Sea so that we can hit a couple more sites that relate to Paul's ministry. And while we're on that cruise ship, obviously we have no input as to where that cruise ship stops. And it will stop at several islands that have nothing to do with the biblical text, but are certainly really cool vacation spots, places like Mykonos. You can see that on day 6. And on day 9, Santorini. Crete is also an interesting place. It is mentioned in the Bible, but we don't do any study there from a biblical standpoint. There's nothing really that would, I would say, be theologically of interest there, but certainly a really cool island to visit. We'll also visit Ephesus. You can see that on day 7. Ephesus was a very important city in the ancient world that Paul visited at the very end of his second missionary journey and during his third missionary journey. So we will tour the ruins of Ephesus, that they're top 5 ruins in all the world, in my opinion, and do some Bible study there. We then hit Patmos, which has nothing to do with Paul's ministry, but it is the place where John wrote the book of Revelation. And so a very biblical site, and we'll do some really cool teaching there. And then we'll return from our cruise back to Athens and complete our tour by visiting Corinth, which is another one of the biblical cities that Paul visited and preached to and started a church there. And we have the books of 1st and 2nd Corinthians from the New Testament. And there were other works, other letters that he wrote to them that have not been preserved. And we'll touch on that as part of our teaching. And then we return home on day 10, which would be May 9th. So if I can scroll back up to the top here for some of the details here, you see the pricing there. And our pricing is 2-tiered. It's always with small tours, boutique tours like what we offer. It's very much dependent upon how many people go on the trip as to what the cost will be. We also like to limit our tours to a certain number. You see there 15 to 20. I kind of think that's the sweet spot in terms of creating a community, a traveling community, a faith community. But we also recognize that, as in this last trip, that more people might be interested. But we certainly don't want to have more than the 34 mentioned there. And we don't want this type of a tour to be a cattle car type tour. And a lot of times these faith type tours are just that. You know, you've got not just one bus, but maybe 4 or 5 or 10 buses. And people are cattle carred together, and you're just rushing from one place to the next. And you really don't get a sense of community. You really don't get a chance really to discuss and to contemplate the things that you've seen with your small group of people that you're there with. And so we really like to have these boutique type tours of less than 30, 34 people max. So here are the details here. I will attach this to the email that gets sent out today. And if this is something that is of interest to you, you can certainly contact me at davidwalker@charter.net or through the Substack chat box. And you can also talk to Noelle. You can see her information there at the bottom, 828-244-6640, or noelle@insightsintravel.com. And she can walk you through the logistics of getting signed up. Thank you for your time and attention today. Godspeed and shalom. Pastor D. Walk signing out.